Hello world! As you can see, I need to work on a few things on my railway. Namely, this turn that is out of gauge. The problem was pretty simple. On a straight, those holes I drill into the boards have a tendency to keep the gauge. But on a curve, the track has a tendency to hug against those holes and make the gauge as narrow as physically possible, which causes the flange to ride up onto the rail. The solution was just to cut some pieces of metal at the exact gauge that the wheels needed to spread the rails apart, and then bang on it profusely with a hammer until the rails bent themselves into the proper alignment. Then I just redrive the screws to keep the track at the proper gauge. Problem solved, and from now on I have these handy little rail gauges made of metal. They're going to do a good job at keeping the rails apart. This curve is actually some of the first track I ever laid, and, therefore, it has some of the oldest ties that are made of untreated lumber and a different size screw. That's a self-tapping screw that has a completely different head than what I'm currently using. It's kind of odd working on the first track I ever laid again, because I clearly was doing things so differently, and it's hard to describe what I was thinking at the time when I originally laid this track. But I go ahead and I use the exact same hardware I used originally, because this railway is all about testing old methods, and honestly, these screws are still holding up. They're a bit rusty, but they still work, so why not use them? Let's just have a quick check to make sure it works. After fixing the out-of-gauge section of track, it's time for me to mill some new ties and get ready to lay some new rail. And as you can see, I've refined the process even more. Before I used a hand drill to just drill a hole exactly where I needed the little nub to engage with the railroad tie, but as I've been buying more and more T-post, I've noticed that there is no guarantee that those nubs will actually line up together. So I built a router jig and bought me the cheapest router I could find at the hardware store. And I've owned a router before, but that was back when I had a full workshop, and this is going to be the router to replace all of that because I don't own that stuff anymore. Hopefully it will last long enough to just mill a whole bunch of ties and start making rail. Then I'll load it onto the railway cart and take it on down to be put in place. The first step to laying track is to remove the grass and weeds, and I'm doing that here with just a weed whacker. I am trying to scalp the ground. I want to hit dirt with the weed whacker wherever I think rail is about to go. That'll give the track, the ballast, and the cardboard I'm going to add the best possible chance at stopping grass and weeds from growing up through quickly. They will do it eventually. Living organisms can't be beat forever after all. But this will at least give me a few weeks of no weeds or anything growing up through it. Once the grass is buffed down, it's time to lay down some cardboard or whatever base layer you want to add underneath the rail. Then put down the section of rail and start welding. I used to drill fish plates into the sides of the rail, and people who use like aluminum rail will still do that. But this rail is tough, and it's getting expensive to drill holes in it. I would say I was burning up about 2 drill bits per every new section of 8-foot track, and that's just not worth it. So, instead, I weld now. And I gotta say, I'm loving the welder. It's pretty much wash, rinse, and repeat with every single new section of straight track. And when fusing 2 pieces of straight track, I can always cut the right or left rail off ever so slightly to give myself a tiny bit of a bend. It won't feel all that rough, and it's a good way of getting the track to curve in a cheap manner that doesn't involve using the bender. As of recording this voiceover for this video, I no longer do this step here. I know it looks like I'm sending a whole bunch of sparks into my drink there, but the drink's actually sitting on the tie. It's a little ways away. But anyway, I don't do this step of cutting off the rails to be even with each other. Again, these things are T-posts designed to hold fencing up, so nothing on them is exactly the same, including their lengths. They say 8 foot, but they really mean 8 foot, maybe with a few inches off or a few inches added. I used to cut that little bit of excess off so that the rails would be equal. Now I don't do that. Now I just line up the 2 ends with one another. Why am I checking the blade there? I have no idea. But now I just line the 2 ends up equal with one another and bang on the ends with a big sledgehammer. That will send the 2 unequal sections of track up against the current and existing track. Once they're buttered up like that, you can go ahead and weld them. If things get too crazy, then and only then will I start to cut off the excess. But there's really no need. They're about 8 foot, and the missing inch or the added inch will eventually equal up to one another. My railway is pretty lightweight and the ground is not very level, so it's just a matter of mulch. All I do is I take mulch and I pour it on my tracks the same way you would ballast, and then stomp on it until it's nice and compacted. I can always come back through later and add sand if I want to harden it, or I could add some very fine gravel, or maybe even some chicken grit if I wanted the tracks to have something to really lock them in place. But the good part about using mulch is that I know for a fact it will become dirt eventually. I've seen other small gauge railways use geomembrane in order to stop the soft ground from swallowing up heavy ballast. The geomembrane allows for weight displacement and stops the ballast from sinking deep down into the ground. And you'd be surprised how far down some of those smaller rocks can really go into the earth to never be seen again. My solution is, of course, just mulch, and it's the same solution that was used in places like South America to build large stone pyramids in what is typically swampy ground. They basically just hammer in a whole bunch of tree cores, and then that produces a hardened ground surface that you can then put something heavy on, like a stone. Same basic principle. I can always come back through here after the mulch has sunken down and add gravel if I want to. After adding sections of straight rail to the front, I went ahead and added sections of straight rail to the back. Now, I'm at both corners of the property that I can reasonably add rail to, and I'm going to have to add curved sections of rail next, so that'll mean refining my ability to make curved sections of track. But that's going to have to wait until next weekend, because I'm tired and I need to relax. So for now, I'm just taking this extra mulch back to the truck, where I can store it or use it in low spots.
Alright, that's the end of this short update. I've got a lot more work to do and I'm probably going to do it off camera, so thank you for watching this video. Hope you like, comment, subscribe. It helps me out turn of war against YouTube algorithm. And now I'm going to take me a food break and then get back to work. So, see ya. Oh, yeah, I have an oar. Row, row, row the boat. Yes. Works out splendidly, doesn't it then? Yeah.
Let me see your phone.
Hand it off to you so you can record me
Yeah.
going away. Good enough.
Okay.
Whatever. I edit.
And
Have you started?
yeah.
Before we part ways, here's a bonus clip of my girlfriend taking a ride on the rails. She's not a very good cameraman and didn't really hold the phone up to where you could see anything, but it's a fine enough shot for now. Way better than that shaky shot I did last video. So, enjoy your ride while I'll have to be saying bye-bye.
Gravity trains.
Hehehehe